So, our sermon. I have to say that when Ken contacted me, I was like, I'll just do something about Thanksgiving. And as my wife and I continue to talk about all of the things that are challenging, I realize I sometimes don't feel very thankful. And so maybe that's a better topic sometimes. Here we are, nearing the close of a year that has tried our souls in more ways than one. And I see all the old Thanksgiving tropes coming out of the woodwork: abundance and family and food and health and holiday shopping. Please come get your Black Friday deals and your Black Friday all month deals, and buy yourself a car too while you're at it. And of course, sometimes this time around, the ads have people in masks, but it's the same thing. And any other year, I might have just swallowed that banality and given myself over to celebrations in the way that I find most fulfilling. I know that I have a level of comfort and security that some folks in my neighborhood and in this country and around the world do not have. And I do appreciate what I have, both in internal resilience and in possessions that help me to be safe and warm and fed, and I am thankful. But sometimes it doesn't seem like enough. What about the people I know who are or have been ill with COVID-19, who have lost loved ones to that disease, or to the myriad other reasons that people die this year? What about the losses of jobs and homes? The mental health crisis and addiction crisis that has hit my family and probably yours? The increase in people, primarily women and children, who are even more stuck with their abusers, and the ravages of climate change manifesting in fires and floods on the lives and well-being of so many around the nation and the world. And not to mention the uncertainty of a peaceful transfer of power that we're used to experiencing after any election. Perhaps what I really resent is the implied obligation to be grateful, or to be grateful on command. You should. You know, I hate that word. I can't just turn away from the tragedy and look at the commercially produced sunny side of the street, because then I feel fake. My empathy button doesn't have an off switch, and I bet yours doesn't either. How do we hold both tragedy and hope? Can we cradle gently our personal and collective sorrow, and also live into the words of Meister Eckhart, that German philosopher, who said, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough? Now, unsurprisingly, I think we can, otherwise I'm in the wrong line of work. But I often have to remind myself when my focus becomes narrowed on the hurt, the devastation, and the pain, is that we are complex beings, prismatic humans with many facets seen and unseen. We can rejoice in the birth of a baby, of any species really, because I'll get just as excited over chickens. I can rejoice in that, and also feel the heartbreaking anguish at the devastation wrought by all the hurricanes and wildfires that have ravaged the land and the multiple species that live here. We can feel peace sitting in the backyard, and simultaneously acknowledge our fears of COVID-19 infection when we step out of that yard. The focus we choose is the facet that gets polished. So, what's it to be? Shall we choose thankfulness or ingratitude, appreciation or discouragement, acceptance and hope or despair and denial? Shall we be Pollyanna or the Grinch? Are they truly separate? I love this dichotomy, Pollyanna and the Grinch. Now, maybe some of you don't remember, but I loved that Pollyanna story that was made into a movie. Starring Haley Mills. Do you remember her? I think that was her name. Anyway, Pollyanna, an 11-year-old in the book of the same name, written by Eleanor H. Porter in 1913. She is unfailingly optimistic. And in the years since that book was popularized, the phrase being a Pollyanna has often been used to disparage folks who try to see the bright side of everything. Pollyanna and her father developed what they called the glad game to try to deal with the disappointments and difficulties of life and she brought that sunny view to the home of her kind of cranky spinster aunt and the town in Vermont where they lived after her father died. Now the Grinch, on the other hand, let's just pull out all the old stops, right? The Grinch is the Dr. Seuss character who can only see the negative side of everything, both in the book and that fabulous cartoon movie that I love every year, both as a child and even now. The Grinch is described as having a heart that is 2 sizes too small, and that is why he is so Grinchly. His attitude, however, doesn't much affect those around him, even when he does his worst and his best to make the Who's down in Whoville all cry boo-hoo. What is it that makes Pollyanna able to see goodness when there is very little encouragement? And what makes the Grinch's heart grow 3 sizes and turn him around with a sleigh full of gifts and food he stole earlier? Seems to me that the deciding factor is gratitude. The glad game is how Pollyanna was able to function after the death of her mother, the sadness of poverty, the tragedy of losing her father and having to move in with her aunt, who is none too thrilled to have a young person around. Pollyanna could be sad and glad. And even though the rest of the story and many pieces of it are problematic to our modern minds and ears and eyes, it is not wrong to note that we also can be sad and glad and mad and fearful and cheerful and tearful, and there's my ode to Dr. Seuss. Is it too simple? Kind of seems that way. I mean, you just can't slap the label of gratitude on a painful situation and call it fixed. That puts you fully in the realm of spiritual bypassing. And I don't encourage that facade of love and light that diminishes or denies the lived experience of all of us who have worked our way through our own dark nights of the soul. Using gratitude to avoid our painful and frightening emotions can slow down true growth and progress. And this is particularly evident in the use of the words, at least. My youngest son is struggling with opioid use. Yes, but at least your older boy's doing well in school. And my wife and I are having marital problems. Well, at least you have a marriage and a partner. We're having problems making ends meet. At least you still have a roof over your heads. My family has been sick with coronavirus. Well, at least you're not in the hospital. When we hear and believe someone else say at least, or tell ourselves at least, we give ourselves permission to deflect the challenges or difficulties in front of us, and so put off or even avoid completely dealing with them directly. We can not only focus on love and light or angel blessings or whatever current new agey sort of words come by. We have to dig into the muck of our psyches and come to understand what is buried there and why. The treasures of self-knowledge, appreciation for our journey, and the compassion for the journeys of others, the gifts that of the sometimes difficult work of our own soul growth. So why do I sometimes feel like being thankful is the thing that brings out my inner Grinch? Now, y'all know I can be woo-woo. And as woo-woo as I can be, I also really love science, especially neuroscience. So I did some digging around for brain experts and what they have researched about gratitude. There are studies that contend that some people are not hardwired to show gratitude, and that for some of us, gratitude just doesn't come easily. Research suggests that these differences may be rooted in our brains or our genes, maybe even in our personalities. Perhaps the strongest evidence supporting the genetic basis for gratitude comes from a study of twins. And it's always twins, right? Because identical twins share almost exactly the same DNA, and fraternal twins only have half. So they provide an interesting study. Michael Steger and some colleagues did studies with twins. And that their studies, I'm gonna find my place here. Their studies, the identical twins had similar self-reported levels of gratitude with each other than did fraternal twins, suggesting that there may be some sort of a genetic component to gratitude. Now, in addition, some people may have, a difference or a deficiency in the ability to produce hormones like oxytocin and dopamine, both of which are associated with increased levels of gratitude. Neil Burton, in his article entitled The Psychology of Gratitude, tells us that gratitude never came easily to us human beings. And it is a diminishing virtue in modern times. In our consumerist society, we focus on what we lack or what other people have that we don't. And author Ben Schwartz offers this: we've read many self-help books that push the gratitude idea. Make a gratitude list, keep a gratitude journal, focus on what you are grateful for in order to feel more positive and attract more good things into your life. But most people secretly find it very difficult to truly and genuinely feel gratitude when life is really hard, those times that you actually need positive energy the most. Yeah. I can appreciate Neil Burton's observation that we live in a consumerist society. Going back to my earlier reference to the Black Friday sales, the focus on the consumer, the focus of being a consumer is on depleting, isn't it? When we consume food, we deplete what is on our plate. When our bodies consume the energy from that food for the functions needed to maintain life, we deplete our energy and we need to consume more. But beyond depletion, the consumer mindset is one of scarcity. We keep looking for more because we forget what enough looks like or feels like. When we focus on scarcity, we have a really difficult time with thankfulness. We end up polishing the facet of our inner prism that focus on comparisons between ourselves and others, the ones that see only abundance elsewhere, but not where we are. That scarcity mindset gets us all tied up in thinking that we are our possessions, that we only have just so much and there will never be more. And if we don't have enough stuff, then we doubt our own enoughness. How much toilet paper do you have right now? I just counted, I've got 30 rolls of toilet paper. Probably not going to use it all anytime soon, but it's enough for now, right? We have learned that success equals money, equals possessions, equals self-worth. And it can be difficult to untangle this morass of stinking thinking because it gets reinforced with every advertisement, every message of new and shiny, every time we see someone else having what we want or what we think we should want. That's the message of consumerism, isn't it? Even if you don't want it now, you might someday, and you should want it because it means something important out there that can increase your status, or your power, or your enoughness. We can, and sometimes do, run ourselves ragged trying to find the equilibrium of enough. The beginning of enough is acknowledging that what we actually need and already have, both internally and externally, within ourselves and within our communities. As we've learned during these months of quarantine and restricted activities and travel and little to no group gatherings like attending worship in person, community is a huge component of feeling enoughness. We find the gifts of enough when we enjoy the company of others and can share joys and laughter, griefs and gripes without the mediation of a screen. It's no wonder so many of us are feeling exhausted, sad, and depleted. Because it's not easy to feel grateful for our health or safety when we can't share that in community along with hugs and that energy that surrounds us when we gather together in the same location. And I would be so grateful for a round of hugs from all of y'all right now. You know, I've been thinking in writing this message that gratitude is about gifts and responses. There's a gift and there is a response to that gift. But there is a difference between transactional gifts and free gratitude. Transactional gratitude is based in the fact that there is a, shall we say, quid pro quo. And if you don't know what quid pro quo is, after last year's whistleblower revelations about a call between the Oval Office and the president of Ukraine and the impeachment of Donald Trump, I am going to point you to a multifarious list of news articles about it. Quid pro quo, something for something. It's an exchange, but it's often an unequal exchange. I give you something you want, you give me something I want, but many times there are more strings attached than that first tit for tat. The beneficiary is in the benefactor's debt. The debt must be repaid, often in ways determined by the benefactor. This type of gratitude exchange is something we may come to resent. I must thank you for giving me something that really benefits you and keeps me in your debt, even after my expression of gratitude. Yuck. The goal of that system is to be at the very top of the benefactor pyramid, so everyone below is indebted to you. And we see this kind of transactional gratitude all the time, and it is so much less than life affirming. So what is gratitude that is not transactional, not a quid pro quo? It is free. It is pro bono, which means for good. Pro bono gratitude is when a gift is given without any expectation of an exchange or payment of any kind. This is hopefully what we intend when we give gifts to friends and lovers and family members. But I've found that if I don't get a nominal thanks, I feel a little disappointed. I think this was the reason why my mom taught me to write thank you notes and why I passed that practice on to my children, who, as adults, still mostly send thank you notes when they receive something in the mail. It keeps humanity in sync when we say thank you for a gift. Not give a gift because you got one or do a favor for a favor. Someone gives something from their heart, tangible or intangible, and we complete the circle of love, the pro bono for goodness, by acknowledging their offering with gratitude, with showing our appreciation for their gift in our words and actions. It's the same with the world, with the land, and the wider cosmos. In an essay entitled Gratitude by British writer and poet David Whyte, he notes, gratitude is the understanding that many millions of things come together and live together and mesh together and breathe together in order for us to take even one more breath of air. That the underlying gift of life and incarnation as a living, participating human being is a privilege. That we are miraculously part of something rather than nothing. Even if that something is temporarily pain or despair, we inhabit a living world with real faces, real voices, laughter, the color blue, the green of the fields, the freshness of a cold wind, or the tawny hue of a winter landscape. Thankfulness finds its full measure in generosity of presence, both through participation and witness. We sit at the table as part of every other person's world while making our own world without will or effort. This is what is extraordinary and gifted. This is the essence of gratefulness, seeing to the heart of privilege. Thanksgiving happens when our sense of presence meets all other presences. Being unappreciative might mean we are simply not paying attention. I find that another component of gratitude is courage. Courage comes from the Latin word for heart and originally meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Now, I feel like I use this a lot when I speak with you, because courage is something that gets lost in bravado or showboating. But it takes courage to express gratitude because we acknowledge that we are all connected, that we can't do life alone. When we summon the courage to give voice to our heart's desires, we find the courage to ask for what we really want, and we allow someone or something outside of ourselves to participate in bringing the desires into our experience. Then when we tell someone else about our worry or desire or need, we encourage them to speak of their own needs and desires. We can't help to fill each other's needs if we don't know they exist. And we can't participate in the gratitude life cycle without the courage to ask, give, receive, and love. It's a really important piece of the heart's desire. It happens in community. It creates community. Community is what nurtures it. The mycelium encouraged the trees encourage the moss encourages the trillium encourages the birds. The forest is nothing if not one being for another, and the revelation of the green heart of the world. When we feel stuck, it helps when we encourage others. When we feel blocked, encourage others. When we feel uncertain, encourage others. With courage comes connection. With connection comes the comfort of being thankful for being seen and heard and met. And here we are, staring into the face of this nearly unrecognizable holiday of Thanksgiving. It will not be the Thanksgiving or the recreation of Thanksgiving's past for most of us. We may not be able to be near loved ones, to celebrate with a bounty of food, or to enjoy complaining about the stressors of having to get everything on the table by the time folks start arriving. These losses are real, and the grief that accompanies them is real. Don't be afraid to welcome that grief alongside you. Grief is the guest that bangs on the door ever more loudly when you don't invite it in. But when you invite in grief, you can also invite in gratitude. Gratitude is that guest that comes in quietly but starts right in with help. You know that one. The one that sets the table or sorts the serving utensils or counts chairs. Gratitude says, start small. You don't have to have a big show of thanks. You can simply be present with what is. There is peace and thankfulness to be found in paying attention to breath, movement, cognition, memories, nature, presence. And this poem by Denise Levertov captures this quietness. An awe so quiet, I don't know when it began. A gratitude had begun to sing in me. Was there some moment dividing song from no song? When does dewfall begin? When does night fold its arms over our hearts to cherish them? When is daybreak? When I don't feel thankful, I focus on embodiment. Being fully in my body, breathing into all my edges, allows me to stop the scarcity mindset train that insists on running through all I lack, all the pain of the world, all the to-dos on a list, and reset my prism's focus instead inside myself. I don't have to try to feel gratitude when I pay attention to my breath, because I'm not trying to feel anything, and I'm not trying to not feel anything either. Oftentimes within a few breaths, I find that there is a settling of the try to and a rising of calm that allows the song of gratitude to be heard. And so as we move